In the rugged landscape of southern New Mexico, a rancher's life came to a tragic end, igniting a fierce pursuit across the mountains. The rancher, known for his hard work and dedication to the land, fell victim to a band of horse thieves who emerged from the shadows of the southern terrain. These thieves were not mere criminals, they were a determined group of Apaches, skilled in the art of survival in the unforgiving wilderness. Their aim was to seize the rancher's gun and mule, but in their pursuit of gain, they took him by surprise, leading to a violent confrontation that left him dead. The discovery of the rancher's body sent shockwaves through the community. News of his death spread rapidly, facilitated by the crackling radio transmissions that connected neighbors and townsfolk. In a matter of hours, a posse was formed, comprised of local ranchers, farmers, and anyone willing to take up arms in defense of their community. They were motivated by a blend of sorrow and anger, driven by the sense of injustice that had become all too familiar in Grant County. The people had endured too many losses at the hands of these cutthroats, and this latest tragedy was the last straw. As the posse set out, they faced the challenge of tracking the thieves through rugged terrain that offered no easy passage. The mountainous landscape was treacherous, and the lack of adequate roads meant that their only means of travel was on horseback, mirroring the movements of the raiders they sought to apprehend. This was not just a hunt, it was a test of endurance and skill against an enemy who knew the land intimately. A story published by the Silver City Enterprise captured the frustration felt by the locals. Not a season has passed without some citizens of Grant County losing their lives to this band of cutthroats, the article lamented. The townsfolk had grown weary of the relentless threats posed by the raiders, whose audacity seemed to increase with each passing year. With the promise of vengeance in their hearts, the posse pressed on, fueled by a determination to restore peace to their home. As they pursued the criminals, the posse encountered signs of the raiders' passage. Warm campfires still smoldering and materials hastily discarded to lighten their load. Each discovery heightened the urgency of their mission. The men of the posse exchanged grim looks, the realization that they were closing in on their quarry spurring them onward. They knew that time was of the essence. The longer they took, the more likely the thieves were to slip across the border into Mexico, where pursuit would be futile. In a final push, the posse ascended the last ridge before the border, adrenaline coursing through their veins. As they crested the rise, the sight that met their eyes was both exhilarating and infuriating. 8 riders, silhouetted against the fading light of the evening sky, were galloping away on horseback, their figures unmistakably Apache. Just as the posse prepared to chase them down, the thieves vanished into the distance, disappearing into the labyrinth of mountains that separated New Mexico from the vast expanse of Mexico. The frustration and anger among the posse members were palpable. They had come so close to capturing the thieves who had wreaked havoc on their lives and community, only to see them elude capture once again. It was a bitter reminder of the challenges they faced in maintaining justice in a land where lawlessness often reigned supreme. The pursuit of the horse thieves, however, was not just about revenge for the slain rancher. It was a reflection of the ongoing struggle for safety and security in a region where the balance of power seemed to sway unpredictably. The men of the posse vowed to continue the fight, determined to protect their homes and families from the threats that lurked in the shadows of the mountains, even as they understood the complexities of the land they called home. Imagine that for a moment. The world was rapidly changing, cars were rolling down newly paved roads, radios filled homes with music and news, and the echoes of World War I still lingered in the memories of those who had fought. Babies born during the war could now be 5 years old, growing up in a vastly different America. Yet, amidst this wave of modernization, Apache warriors still roamed the rugged mountains of the Southwest, their presence a striking contrast to the technological advancements around them. It's astonishing to think there are people living today who were alive in 1924. Though their numbers are dwindling, the stories from that era are still very much alive. The Apache were unique in that they managed to survive off-reservation for far longer than most people realize. Their elusiveness and resilience were remarkable, and this ability to adapt and thrive in a changing world makes their story all the more fascinating. Today, I'm going to share with you 3 compelling stories that illustrate how the Apache maintained their existence against overwhelming odds. But before we dive in, I want to take a moment to introduce myself. If you're new to the channel, I have a passion for researching historical topics that intrigue me and presenting them in an engaging narrative format. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, consider subscribing or giving a thumbs up. I strive to release 1 or 2 videos each month, so be sure to check back for more content. In the early 1920s, the Apache were far from defeated. Many had retreated into the rugged mountains, utilizing their deep understanding of the terrain to evade government forces and settlers who sought to confine them to reservations. One particularly noteworthy figure during this time was Geronimo's descendant, who continued to uphold the traditions and values of his ancestors. He became a beacon of hope for the Apache, inspiring them to resist assimilation and maintain their cultural identity. While the government attempted to impose its will on the Apache, many of them adapted by blending traditional practices with elements of modern life. They took advantage of the resources available to them, using both their skills and ingenuity to sustain their communities. This resilience was evident in their ceremonies, which incorporated aspects of both Apache and modern American culture. The ability to retain cultural practices while navigating a rapidly changing world allowed the Apache to continue thriving off-reservation. Another remarkable aspect of the Apache was their unmatched skill in guerrilla warfare. Their deep knowledge of the Southwest's landscape made them experts at ambush and evasion. In 1924, a group of Apache raiders undertook a daring operation that showcased their prowess. Armed with little more than their traditional weapons and an intimate knowledge of the terrain, they launched a surprise raid on a ranch, swiftly stealing horses and supplies before disappearing into the mountains. This ability to strike quickly and vanish into the wilderness frustrated law enforcement and military officials. The Apache's tactics were highly effective. They understood the terrain better than any outsider, using it to their advantage at every turn. The raiders would often leave false trails to mislead pursuers, demonstrating their strategic thinking. Their elusiveness became legendary, instilling fear in those who sought to capture them and admiration from those who understood their plight. The final story centers around the importance of community in Apache society. Even as outside pressures mounted, Apache families banded together, forming tight-knit communities that offered mutual support. In the face of adversity, they shared resources and knowledge, ensuring their survival. Elders passed down traditional stories and practices, keeping their culture alive for future generations. As the United States expanded westward, it arrived relatively late to the scene. Much of the early contact between the Apache and settlers was with the Mexicans, and those encounters were often violent. In fact, the name Apache itself is derived from the term used by the neighboring Zuni tribe. The Zuni referred to the Apache as Apachu, which means enemy. This moniker was well earned, as relations between the Mexicans and the Apache were fraught with hostility and bloodshed. Several factors contributed to this contentious relationship. A significant reason was the stark cultural differences between the two groups. The Mexican government sought to impose mainstream societal norms on the Apache, expecting them to abandon their nomadic lifestyle and settle down as farmers and laborers. However, this was anathema to the Apache, who thrived on their way of life as raiders. For them, raiding was not just a means of survival, it was an integral part of their identity and culture. When the Apache needed essential materials or horses, they would gather a war party and set out on raids. This practice was deeply embedded in their way of life, and they viewed it as a legitimate means of acquiring what they needed. However, this led to inevitable clashes with settlers and ranchers, especially when it came to horse theft. The harsh reality of the Old West was that horse thieves often faced severe retribution, and the Apache were no exception. Understanding this context helps illuminate the stories of Apache resilience and their legendary evasion of capture. The Apache were not just fighters, they were a people deeply connected to their land and way of life, fiercely protective of their identity in a world that sought to change them. Their legacy is one of adaptability and determination, enduring against the odds as they navigated the complexities of a rapidly changing landscape. The complexities of Apache life and their raiding practices cannot be understood solely through the lens of morality. For the Apache, these raids were not inherently driven by hatred or malice. Rather, they were a means of survival in a harsh and unforgiving landscape. The environment in which they lived, arid, mountainous, and filled with dangers like rattlesnakes, provided little sustenance. In such a context, taking what one needed from others was often seen as a necessary strategy for survival. While outsiders might view the Apache's actions, such as kidnapping individuals for ransom, adopting captives, or committing acts of brutality, as barbaric, these practices were rooted in their cultural values and economic realities. For the Apache, raiding was about subsistence. If their community needed horses, food, or supplies, raiding neighboring settlements became an essential means of acquiring those resources. This dynamic could easily spiral into violence. People naturally become protective of their possessions and loved ones. When a raid turned deadly or a family member was taken, the response could be swift and brutal. Moreover, the Apache's relentless spirit and determination to protect their way of life ensured their legacy as one of the most elusive and resilient groups in American history. Their stories are not merely tales of conflict. They reflect a profound understanding of their relationship with the land, their community, and the challenges they faced. The cycle of violence, while destructive, also shaped a people who would ultimately refuse to be erased from the narrative of American history. Their legacy lives on, not just in stories of raids and resistance, but in the rich cultural heritage that continues to inform and inspire today. The Apache's remarkable adaptability and deep understanding of their environment enabled them to outlast many other tribes in the face of adversity. Their survival skills were honed over generations, allowing them to navigate the rugged terrains of the Southwest with unmatched proficiency. The Apache's intimate knowledge of their landscape was nothing short of extraordinary. They were experts in foraging and were intimately familiar with every watering hole, cave, and natural resource available to them. This expertise not only ensured their survival but also made them elusive and challenging to track down. The rugged mountains provided a natural defense, offering countless hiding spots and vantage points. When the U.S. military attempted to subdue the Apache, they often found themselves at a significant disadvantage. The Army struggled to locate the Apache bands, leading to a reliance on Apache scouts who were familiar with the territory and could relay messages between various groups. These scouts, often Apache themselves, served as essential intermediaries, bridging the gap between the military and the elusive tribes they were trying to engage. In summary, the Apache's unique skills and profound understanding of their environment allowed them to endure where others could not. Their strategic use of stealth, combined with a practical approach to survival, set them apart as a formidable force. As John Cremeny's writings illustrate, the Apache were not just survivors. They were a resilient people whose cultural identity was intricately woven into the fabric of the land they inhabited. Their legacy continues to resonate today, a testament to their enduring spirit and adaptability in the face of adversity. As they moved to a small bush, hardly large enough to conceal a person, Quick Killer instructed Kremeny to turn his back and wait for the signal. However, Kremeny, feeling uneasy about the request, decided against it. Instead, he chose to walk forward until Quick Killer told him to stop. This choice reflects not only his curiosity but also a hint of skepticism about the Apache's feigned abilities. When Quick Killer finally signaled him to stop, Kremeny turned back, only to find that Quick Killer had vanished. Despite the open landscape, he was nowhere to be seen. The moment was almost unbelievable, a vivid illustration of the Apache's mastery of stealth and concealment. In a world that was rapidly changing around them, this display of skill was a testament to their survival tactics honed over centuries of navigating a hostile environment. The ability to disappear into the landscape speaks to the deep connection the Apache had with their surroundings. This connection was not just physical but also spiritual, as their very existence relied on understanding and respecting the land. Quick Killer's uncanny ability to blend in was not merely a trick but a reflection of an entire culture's profound relationship with nature. The Apache did not view the land as a mere backdrop for their lives. Instead, they saw it as an integral part of their identity. Moreover, Quick Killer's demonstration can be viewed as a form of resistance. In a time, the tale of Quick Killer's remarkable disappearance from John Kremeny's account raises questions that go beyond mere disbelief. It invites us to explore the deeper understanding of perception, environment, and the mastery of survival skills that the Apache people embodied. The scene unfolds on a vast and seemingly featureless prairie, a landscape that, at first glance, offers little in the way of concealment. Yet, Quick Killer's ability to vanish into thin air highlights not only his skill but also the relationship the Apache maintained with their environment, a relationship steeped in knowledge, intuition, and respect. The skill of disappearing and reappearing as Quick Killer did was a culmination of several factors. First, the Apache were experts in the subtle variations of their environment, recognizing patterns that might escape the notice of an outsider. Every blade of grass, every ripple in the terrain told a story, one that only those attuned to the landscape could interpret. This deep understanding of their surroundings allowed them to navigate the land with an agility and grace that seemed almost otherworldly. Moreover, the Apache developed techniques that emphasized movement in harmony with the land. Quick Killer's choice to conceal himself behind a small bush, a seemingly inadequate cover, illustrates the philosophy of using available resources ingeniously. He likely took advantage of natural colors and textures to blend in seamlessly, a skill that came from years of practice and cultural emphasis on stealth and survival. By stripping down to a minimal outfit, he eliminated any distractions that might catch the eye of an onlooker, demonstrating that effective camouflage requires not only materials but also an understanding of how light and shadow play on the landscape. Kremeny's experience serves as a powerful reminder that the narratives we create about cultures often miss the intricacies and depths of their lived experiences. The seemingly impossible feats achieved by Quick Killer were rooted in a rich tradition of knowledge, adaptability, and profound respect for the land. In conclusion, the tale of Quick Killer encapsulates the Apache's enduring legacy as masters of their environment. Their skills, honed over generations, allowed them to navigate challenges in ways that continue to defy conventional understanding. Quick Killer's ability to disappear reflects not just an individual's talent but the collective spirit of a people who understood the land as their ally. As we reflect on this story, it becomes clear that what may appear impossible is often a testament to the incredible adaptability and resilience of cultures shaped by their environment. The art of concealment is an intrinsic aspect of survival, found in both the animal kingdom and among human cultures. Just as a tiger can blend seamlessly into its environment, so too could the Apache people, employing their mastery of stealth to navigate a world that often sought to erase them. This ability to hide in plain sight is not merely about physical concealment. It represents a profound understanding of the landscape, an acute awareness of one's surroundings, and an innate connection to the land that nurtured them. General George Crook, a military figure known for his encounters with various Native American tribes, including the Apache, recognized their remarkable skills. In describing the Apache, he highlighted their acuteness of sense, which speaks to their extraordinary perception of the world around them. This heightened awareness allowed them to detect even the faintest signs of movement or change in their environment, enabling them to adapt swiftly to threats or opportunities. Coupled with their perfect physical condition, the Apache embodied the essence of an apex predator, capable of enduring harsh conditions while maintaining an edge over their adversaries. Crook's description of the Apache as the tiger of the human species is a powerful metaphor that encapsulates their tenacity, adaptability, and fierce independence. It suggests a people who were not merely surviving but thriving in an environment that demanded both physical prowess and intellectual acuity. In the wild, tigers are solitary hunters, but they are also skilled at leveraging their surroundings to ambush their prey. Similarly, the Apache operated within a complex social structure that emphasized individual skill while also fostering collective resilience. During this period, the Apache's identity as fierce warriors and adept raiders became a double-edged sword. On one hand, their skills made them formidable opponents. On the other, they drew the attention and ire of the U.S. government and military. The very traits that enabled them to survive and thrive became the basis for targeted campaigns aimed at subduing their resistance. The Apache's ability to live off reservation and evade capture for so long was a testament to their resilience and resourcefulness, but it also highlighted the cultural clash that was unfolding in the Southwest. The stories of Apache leaders like Geronimo and Cochise reflect this ongoing struggle. These figures became symbols of resistance against encroachment, embodying the spirit of a people unwilling to surrender their autonomy. They understood that while hiding in plain sight was a powerful survival tactic, the fight for their lands and culture required a more proactive approach. The Apache's ability to remain elusive was not just about physical concealment. It also involved the preservation of their identity, beliefs, and ways of life in the face of overwhelming odds. In essence, the Apache were not merely a people to be hunted or subdued. They were skilled survivors, deeply connected to their land and heritage. As they faced the challenges of the 1860s, their story became one of perseverance, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of freedom. The image of the tiger, camouflaged and poised to strike, serves as a fitting metaphor for the Apache's enduring spirit, even as they were pushed into a corner. Their legacy reminds us that the fight for survival often involves not just physical strength but also the courage to resist and the wisdom to adapt in the face of adversity. For a period, the Apache and American settlers managed to maintain a relatively peaceful coexistence. Trade relationships were established, and some mutual understanding was forged. However, this fragile peace was built on a foundation of mistrust and cultural differences. The Apache, proud and fiercely independent, struggled to comprehend the motivations of the new settlers encroaching on their ancestral lands. Conflicts were largely avoided, but the underlying tensions remained simmering, waiting for a catalyst to ignite them. That catalyst came in the form of a missing boy. In 1861, a young white boy named Felix Ward disappeared, and the subsequent search for him would set off a series of events that would fracture the already tenuous relationship between the Chiricahua Apache and the Americans. Lieutenant George Bascom, tasked with investigating the disappearance, summoned Cochise, the chief of the Chiricahua Apache, to discuss the situation. Bascom believed that Cochise and his people were responsible for the abduction, leading to a series of miscommunications that would escalate tensions to a breaking point. Cochise was a respected leader among the Chiricahua, known for his diplomatic skills as well as his warrior prowess. He met with Bascom in good faith, eager to resolve the misunderstanding surrounding Felix Ward's disappearance. However, the reality of the situation was more complex than Bascom realized. The boy had indeed been taken, but it was not the Chiricahua Apache who were responsible. Rather, it was the White Mountain Apache, a distinct group with their own motives and grievances. The failure of Bascom to recognize this distinction was critical. Instead of seeking to understand the complexities of the situation, he allowed his biases and assumptions to dictate his actions. In a move that would have dire consequences, Bascom detained Cochise, believing he could coerce him into revealing the whereabouts of the missing boy. This was a grave miscalculation that would lead to a breakdown in trust between the two parties. The situation escalated rapidly when Lieutenant George Bascom, in a fit of aggression, took Cochise and several of his family members captive. This was a reckless decision, as it disregarded the already fragile state of relations between the Chiricahua Apache and American settlers. When Cochise realized he was being held as a prisoner, he refused to accept his fate. In a moment of quick thinking, he produced a concealed knife and swiftly cut through the tent, making a daring escape into the surrounding wilderness. This act of defiance was emblematic of Cochise's strength and determination as a leader. However, Cochise's family was not as fortunate. Their capture was a strategic move by Bascom to exert control over the situation, but it ultimately backfired. In a desperate bid to secure his family's release, Cochise took several American captives himself, hoping to negotiate a trade. Unfortunately, Bascom remained steadfast in his refusal to acknowledge the complexity of the situation. He demanded the return of Felix Ward, the boy who had sparked this conflict, despite the fact that the Chiricahua Apache were not responsible for his abduction. This refusal to negotiate only intensified the animosity between the two sides. As tensions flared, Cochise made the difficult decision to flee to Mexico, seeking refuge beyond the reach of American authority. Before leaving, however, he exacted a brutal form of vengeance. In a chilling display of retribution, he tortured his 3 American prisoners to death and left their bodies for Bascom to discover. This act was both a personal statement of defiance and a stark warning to those who would cross the Apache. Cochise's message was clear: the Chiricahua would not be easily subjugated, and they would fight to protect their people and their territory. In retaliation, Bascom executed some of his Chiricahua captives, several of whom were related to Cochise. This act of violence deepened the cycle of revenge and retribution between the Apache and American settlers. The events surrounding what is now known as the Bascom Affair would have lasting repercussions, igniting a conflict that would persist for decades. The brutality of the exchange laid the groundwork for a prolonged series of skirmishes, raids, and battles as both sides struggled for dominance in a rapidly changing landscape. The Bascom Affair was more than just a pivotal moment in Apache-American relations. It was a catalyst for a larger narrative of resistance and resilience. The events that unfolded during this turbulent period underscore the complexities of cultural misunderstandings and the catastrophic consequences of aggression. The Apache, particularly the Chiricahua under Cochise's leadership, would continue to defend their way of life against an increasingly encroaching and often brutal force, shaping the course of history in the American Southwest for generations to come. As both sides entrenched themselves in this cycle of violence, the Bascom Affair served as a stark reminder of how quickly misunderstandings could escalate into larger conflicts, affecting not just the immediate parties involved but also the broader landscape of American history. The scars of this confrontation would linger long after the dust settled, highlighting the enduring struggle of the Apache people to maintain their identity and sovereignty in the face of relentless expansion and conflict. During the tumultuous years following the Bascom Affair, Cochise and the Chiricahua Apache adeptly navigated a landscape rife with challenges, capitalizing on the distractions faced by the United States. While the American military was preoccupied with the Civil War and its aftermath, Cochise and his people found refuge in the rugged terrain of the Dragoon Mountains, utilizing the natural resources and geographical features to evade capture. The mountainous landscape provided ample cover, allowing the Apache to remain elusive while continuing their raiding activities in surrounding areas. Cremini contrasted this with the Apache strategy of creating small fires in secluded areas, effectively camouflaging their presence. By gathering around these modest fires, they could warm themselves without risking exposure to potential threats. Furthermore, when they heard gunfire, rather than rushing to the source, an instinctive reaction that often put the Americans at risk, the Apache would retreat to safety. They understood the value of caution and patience, ensuring that they could ascertain the situation before acting. This level of strategic thinking reflected their survival skills honed over generations and underscored the differences in approach to warfare between the two groups. Cochise's ability to remain elusive for nearly a decade highlighted not only his tactical brilliance but also the adaptability of the Apache. During this time, he and his people conducted numerous raids, seizing supplies, livestock, and other essential resources from neighboring settlements. The raids were not merely acts of aggression, they were critical to the survival of the Chiricahua, who were facing increasing pressure from American encroachment on their territory. Cochise understood that these actions were necessary to sustain his people in a harsh and unforgiving environment, where resources were scarce, and survival depended on their ability to outmaneuver their adversaries. Despite the challenges they faced, Cochise's leadership inspired loyalty among his followers. His reputation as a fierce warrior and a shrewd strategist resonated throughout the Apache community, uniting them in their struggle against the Americans. As the years passed, the military's attempts to subdue Cochise and his people became increasingly futile, reinforcing the legend of Cochise as an indomitable leader. In 1872, however, Cochise's luck would begin to wane as military pressure intensified and the U.S. government implemented new strategies to contain Apache resistance. The growing military presence in the region posed a significant threat, and the days of Cochise's effective evasion were numbered. But until that point, the Apache's ability to thrive in the face of adversity served as a testament to their resilience and adaptability. Hall Hutton, in his book Apache Wars, paints a vivid picture of the land where the Apache lived, describing it as a land where every plant bore a barb, every insect a stinger, every bird a talon, every reptile a fang. This portrayal underscores the treacherous nature of Apacheria, which posed threats at every turn. Yet, despite these dangers, the Apache adapted to their surroundings, developing an extensive understanding of their natural environment that would ultimately ensure their survival. The Apache were adept foragers, knowing how to locate various food sources. They hunted game and gathered a wide variety of edible plants, including sunflower seeds, wild grasses, wild onions, berries, and the fruit of the cactus. Their ability to identify and utilize these resources allowed them to thrive in a region that many would deem uninhabitable. They only emerged from the safety of their hidden mountain refuges when they needed to procure supplies, skillfully executing raids to obtain what they required. However, these raiding expeditions, though essential for their survival, were also the source of constant conflict with the U.S. military and settlers encroaching on their territory. Each raid drew the ire of the American forces, who were determined to curb the Apache's ability to sustain themselves through these means. As a result, the military found itself in a perpetual game of cat and mouse with the Apache, who were masters of evasion and ambush. The relentless pursuit of the Apache by military forces only heightened the stakes. Each skirmish, each raid further entrenched the conflict, creating a cycle of violence that seemed unending. The Apaches' knowledge of their homeland provided them with tactical advantages, allowing them to launch surprise attacks and disappear before retaliation could be mounted. Their ability to blend into the terrain made them elusive adversaries, frustrating military efforts to subdue them. Cochise, as a leader, epitomized this Apache resilience. He understood the delicate balance between aggression and caution, often choosing to strike when the odds were in his favor. His leadership style reflected the broader Apache philosophy. They were willing to fight fiercely for their way of life, but they would do so thoughtfully and strategically. As the years passed and the conflict continued, the Apaches' fierce commitment to their homeland and their way of life only grew stronger. They viewed their raiding not as an act of senseless violence but as a necessary means of survival in a world that continually sought to dispossess them. Each raid was a statement of their autonomy and their refusal to be subjugated, a testament to their enduring spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. Despite the constant threats they faced, the Apache managed to maintain their cultural identity and way of life amidst the chaos of conflict. Their understanding of the land, combined with their strategic approach to warfare, allowed them to resist American encroachment far longer than many would have anticipated. The Apache were not merely surviving, they were adapting, evolving, and thriving in a land that seemed designed to defeat them. The ongoing struggle between the Apache and the U.S. military serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities of cultural conflict and the resilience of indigenous peoples. The Apache's ability to navigate the harsh realities of their environment and engage in warfare with a unique perspective on bravery and discretion reflects their profound connection to their land and their commitment to their identity. In the face of adversity, the Apache spirit remained unbroken, a testament to their enduring legacy in American history. The 1880s were a turbulent time for the Apache. The U.S. government sought to consolidate control over the Southwest, forcing many Apache onto reservations. Geronimo's resistance was emblematic of the struggle faced by the Apache people, as he refused to accept the restrictions imposed on them. His legendary evasion of capture became a source of pride for his people and a point of frustration for the military. However, the relentless pursuit of Geronimo and his band eventually took a toll. In 1886, facing overwhelming odds and recognizing the futility of continued resistance, Geronimo made the difficult decision to surrender. This moment marked a significant turning point in the Apache Wars, as it symbolized the end of a chapter characterized by fierce resistance against the encroachment of settlers and military forces. Despite his surrender, Geronimo's legacy endured. He became a symbol of Native American resilience and resistance, and his story continues to be told as a reminder of the struggles faced by indigenous peoples in the face of colonization. His life is a testament to the strength of a culture deeply connected to the land and a powerful reminder of the enduring spirit of the Apache people. Geronimo's journey reflects not just the story of one man, but the collective experience of a people striving for survival, dignity, and justice in a world increasingly dominated by outside forces. After his surrender, Geronimo, like many of the Chiricahua, faced the grim reality of life on a reservation. The Chiricahua Apache had agreed to live on a reservation under the promise of receiving a significant portion of their ancestral lands. However, this promise was soon broken when they were relocated to the San Carlos Reservation, a place that proved to be far from ideal for their way of life. Despite the relentless pursuit of the military, Geronimo's knowledge of the terrain and guerrilla warfare tactics made him a formidable opponent. His ability to navigate the mountains and forests of the Sierra Madre allowed him and his group to evade capture time and again. However, the continuous strain of conflict, coupled with the harsh realities of their existence, weighed heavily on the Apache people. Each breakout, while a testament to their resilience and desire for freedom, also served as a reminder of the deepening crisis they faced as a people struggling to survive in a world that sought to erase their identity and way of life. Ultimately, the story of Geronimo and the Chiricahua Apache reflects a broader narrative of resistance and resilience in the face of oppression. Their struggle to reclaim their land and way of life is emblematic of the fight faced by many indigenous peoples throughout history, as they navigated the complexities of a rapidly changing world. The Apache's legacy endures, serving as a powerful reminder of the strength and determination that defined their existence amid overwhelming adversity. In Geronimo's final escape, he led a small band of over 130 individuals, evading capture in a game of cat and mouse that pitted him against an overwhelming force. The United States mobilized the staggering quarter of its military, deploying approximately 5,000 troops to track him down. In addition, the Mexican government contributed around 3,000 soldiers to the effort, and over 100 hired Apache scouts, literally Apache hunting Apache, joined the chase. Mexico had its own motives for wanting Geronimo stopped, as it was alleged that during the year and a half he evaded capture, his band may have been responsible for the deaths of hundreds of Mexicans. Geronimo's elusive nature became legendary as he moved back and forth across the border between Mexico and the United States, conducting raids to gather supplies. One of the key reasons for the Apache's difficulty in being caught lay in their remarkable mobility. On horseback, they could cover up to 70 miles a day, even in rugged terrain. This extraordinary endurance allowed them to stay one step ahead of their pursuers. Geronimo's group was known to push their horses to the limit, sometimes running them to death, but they made use of every resource available. After butchering their exhausted mounts for meat, they would steal fresh horses from nearby ranches or settlements, repeating the cycle. Despite his cunning and the strength of his band, Geronimo came close to capture in January of 1886. U.S. Captain Emmett Crawford led a contingent of soldiers who successfully located and seized Geronimo's supplies and horses, further tightening the noose around the Apache leader. Faced with dwindling options and mounting pressure, Geronimo found himself with nowhere to go. He was cornered, and it seemed inevitable that he would surrender. This moment marked a turning point in a protracted struggle between Geronimo's Apache and the formidable military forces pursuing them. As they drew closer, the Apache's resilience was tested like never before. The relentless pursuit by U.S. and Mexican troops showcased not only the desperation of the military forces to subdue Geronimo but also the determination of an Apache leader who had spent much of his life resisting oppression. The tension reached its peak as Geronimo contemplated his next move, weighing the option of surrender against his commitment to his people and their way of life. The legacy of his resistance was about more than just survival. It represented the fierce spirit of a culture that had faced relentless challenges over generations. As the Apache leader faced what seemed to be an insurmountable situation, his story served as a poignant reminder of the struggles faced by indigenous peoples in the face of colonization and oppression, reflecting the broader narrative of resilience and resistance throughout history. At the last moment, as Geronimo was poised to face capture, the situation took a dramatic turn. Mexican forces, also on the hunt for the elusive Apache leader, stumbled upon the hired Apache scouts assisting the Americans in their search. Misunderstanding their intentions, the Mexicans attacked the scouts, believing they were allied with Geronimo or possibly looking to claim a bounty offered by the Mexican government for information about him. A fierce battle erupted, during which U.S. Captain Emmett Crawford was killed, allowing Geronimo to slip away yet again, narrowly avoiding capture. Just a few months later, in March 1886, General George Crook, who had previously described the Apache as the tiger of the human species, managed to catch up with Geronimo. He initiated negotiations for Geronimo's surrender, Remarkably, there exists a photograph of this meeting, a striking visual testament to the tense and tumultuous relationship between the Apache leader and the U.S. military. However, the atmosphere surrounding this negotiation was fraught with uncertainty. In the lead-up to this moment, rumors had circulated among the Apache that if they crossed the border back into the United States, there were plans to kill Geronimo. This fear compelled him and 39 of his followers to escape in the dead of night, seeking safety away from the looming threat of betrayal. They evaded capture for several months, traversing the harsh landscapes of the Southwest, relying on their deep knowledge of the terrain to stay hidden. Despite their evasion, the relentless pursuit continued. Geronimo and his group remained on the run, living a life marked by constant vigilance and hardship. Their journey took them across the borders of Arizona and Mexico, testing their endurance and resourcefulness in a hostile environment. Yet, after a grueling year and a half of evading capture, the realities of their situation became increasingly difficult to ignore. Ultimately, in September 1886, Geronimo faced the end of his flight. After months of living in the shadows, he finally surrendered for real, marking a significant turning point not only in his life but also in the ongoing struggle of the Apache people. This surrender symbolized the culmination of decades of resistance against a backdrop of relentless military pursuit and oppression. Geronimo's story is a testament to the resilience of his people, embodying the spirit of those who fought to preserve their way of life in the face of overwhelming odds. Geronimo's ability to evade capture for a full year and a half, despite the concerted efforts of thousands hunting him down, underscores the elusiveness and resourcefulness of the Apache people. Their knowledge of the land and their skills in stealth allowed them to navigate a harsh environment while constantly staying one step ahead of their pursuers. However, when Geronimo was finally captured in 1886, the U.S. government made a drastic decision. Instead of returning him to a reservation, they sent him to the most inhospitable place imaginable, Florida. Now, while many might enjoy Florida's sunshine and beaches today, it was a very different experience back then, especially without air conditioning. The oppressive heat, combined with the daunting reality of the Everglades, created an environment far from welcoming. Geronimo would be moved from place to place during his captivity, but he was effectively held prisoner for the remainder of his life. The government feared that releasing him could spark more rebellions and violence among the Apache, reinforcing their decision to keep him confined. In an ironic twist of fate, Geronimo did have the opportunity to meet President Theodore Roosevelt, a figure known for his complex views on Native Americans. This encounter was significant, as it highlighted Geronimo's role as a symbol of resistance and the continuing struggle of indigenous peoples against U.S. expansion and oppression. Though the episode began with a description of an Apache raid in 1924, we haven't yet traced the entire journey to that time. This narrative, rich with history, reveals that even after Geronimo's capture, not all Apache were subdued. Many escaped from reservations, returning to their resourceful lives in the mountains, continuing their traditions, and conducting raids as they had for generations. Their resilience exemplified the enduring spirit of the Apache people, who, despite the overwhelming odds and pressures from the U.S. government, found ways to survive and maintain their identity in a rapidly changing world. While the narrative may pause here, the story of the Apache does not end with Geronimo's surrender. It continues with those who refused to give up, who clung to their way of life in the face of adversity, and who became the guardians of their culture for future generations. The 1924 attack marks the last recorded Apache raid within the United States, but the narrative doesn't end there. Historical records indicate that Apache raids continued in Mexico well into the 1930s, with some claims suggesting that groups of Apache may have remained hidden in the mountains until the 1950s. This speaks volumes about their remarkable adaptability and resilience. There are countless stories that further illustrate the Apache's capabilities and their ability to remain elusive. If you're interested in hearing more about these tales, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it engaging and that you'll return to explore more content on the channel. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos, please feel free to send them my way. I look forward to addressing all your inquiries.